the early beginnings of the concept of a U.S. Center for Citizen Diplomacy began around the year 2004, when a number of outstanding leaders of nonprofit organizations that were international and who were primarily headquartered in Washington began to get together on a very informal basis and think through how the work that they were doing could be more visible and, in fact, engage more Americans. And why? Why is that important? It's by being engaged in whether it's a sister city program or a student exchange program or studying abroad or even being involved in just a humanitarian aid project and raising money for another in a disaster that may be occurring in another part of the world. It makes us more aware and it educates us about the rest of the world beyond our own borders. And then what that does, of course, is create a more globally competent society. And you can be involved in these things whether you're 5 or whether you're 95. So when the center came into being, its purpose was not really to conduct another exchange program or develop another partner school. Rather, it was looking at this wonderful, huge number of organizations, actually some 8,000 in our country, that provide all these opportunities, whether you're, we say, 5 or 95, to be involved. And that's really the mission of the center, is promoting being engaged internationally and then working with all these organizations to help them achieve their objectives. Well, in 2010, late in the year, in November, the U.S. Center held a fairly major meeting in Washington. We called it the U.S. Summit on Citizen Diplomacy. And during that meeting, Deidre White, who is the current president of CDC Development Solutions, participated in a leadership role, bringing together members of the business community to make a report and a presentation and a workshop on the whole role of business in international relations and, in particular, international volunteerism. And it was in that context that we got to know Deidre, and she also, at that point in time, became a member of our board of directors. So we had a lot of opportunity to interface with Deidre, and I have a great deal of respect for what she has done with her organization in terms of reaching out to our business community, i.e. the private sector, as opposed to the nonprofit sector, which the U.S. Center is engaged with, and really creating wonderful opportunities that have afforded employees of those corporations to be involved in corporate international volunteer service programs around the world. The way in which I feel very strongly that CDC can help is it brings to the organization of the center some of the resources, both in kind as well as potentially financial, that the private sector can help with the mission of the U.S. Center, which again is primarily in the nonprofit realm. Having close association with the private sector and the business community also, I think, affords a nonprofit the kind of insight and business acumen that will help us in terms of the way in which we manage our programs more efficiently, make better use of donor dollars, and greater accountability, which are very important to the business community, and I think the nonprofit has a lot to learn in those respects from the private sector. In the kinds of work that CDC Development Solution does with the corporate world, helping them design and manage their corporate international volunteer programs, that means that many employees are working abroad and having excellent exposure to international activity in a very development practical sense. They're out helping other NGOs and local governments build their capacity. And in many instances, this can be perhaps the first kind of experience that an employee will have. And for any of us who have traveled abroad and been engaged internationally, you come back, I would say, 98% of us saying it's been a life-changing experience, and you don't look at things quite the same way. And the other thing that it does is it inspires you. You want to continue, something that would continue your interest in international relations. So what I think the center can obviously do there on that point is when these employees come back, we have at our fingertips knowledge of all of the NGOs in any given community that these employees might be then engaged with. And I can assure you that there isn't any international NGO that I know of anywhere in the country that wouldn't welcome the participation of a business person from a corporation, in their city to serve as a volunteer or a board member or helping to design programs. So I'm very excited about that possibility. And it seems to be something that is a need. My passing thought, to those who now will be taking over is to keep the mission. It's important, and I'm confident that CDC will, which is always bearing in mind that our country is entering and is in a century where becoming globally competent as a citizen is critical. And that means from kindergarten forward or nursery school forward, we've got to be knowledgeable about the world around us and continue to learn. And in that context, I often think of what my father would say to me periodically when I would say, Dad, what should I be doing? What might be interesting to do when I get to be an adult? And he would often remind me, he would say, Anne, keep in mind, just remember, he said, make your home the center, but never the boundary.